Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond BMR. Of course, I'm your host, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and joining me tonight in Studio B from the state of Missouri, the lovely Krista from the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Please subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast found on YouTube. Also, please subscribe to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob on YouTube and Texas Front Porch, all found on YouTube. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, wherever podcasts are found. If you want to help support what we do around here, the Super Chat's open. It's a great way to support the show. And also, you can become a BMR pirate. Join today, mateys. Join the many, join the few, depending on your point of view, of course. What you get a picture of me with a bandana next to your name in the chat room. How about that? I'm still under the weather a little bit, so I still may sound a little nasally. I do apologize in advance for that. You can check out our YouTube pages for all of our upcoming events, which we'll get into in just a second. Before I move on with that, I also want to remind everybody that Christmas time is coming. Yes, it is. If you've not bought any of my books, well, they're available. Bigfoot Michigan Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters Book 1, found on Amazon. That's been out over a year. Book 2 came out at the end of the summertime. Please type Bigfoot Michigan Rob in your Amazon browser. Please leave a review. It helps promote sales. It's all analytics, much like YouTube. Like when you give the like. It promotes everything. Subscribe. I do appreciate that, and thank you so much. The links for that is also found on my profile page. And hit the like, hit the share, hit the what do you call it? I'm gonna bring up Krista. Hit the alert bell, everybody, because the alert bell will find every show. We're on 7 days a week, and I don't bother to give out the times. You know, Krista,
Nope.
just don't do that no more. And
Turn on that notification bell and we're good. Everybody be
turn
good.
that on. We're good. Again, thanks to everybody for coming in. So how's it going today, Krista?
It's good. Doing good. I'm frustrated, as you know, because my daughter does the color guard thing. And as I was telling you backstage that half the color guard has COVID and two of the parents send the kids to school with it. So I'm beyond mad that it's, right here at Christmas time. And my kid doesn't have it, knock on wood, not yet.
Yeah.
Let's hope she don't. But, a lot of the girls do have it, and it is what it is. But I just wish the parents would have kept their kids at home,
I can't see sending my kids to school with COVID. I mean, it's just this kind
Any other time, not Christmas time, Christmas. I don't want to be sick at home with COVID.
And who wants to, infect their whole family at Christmas?
Right, exactly. So my kid's quarantined in her room just in case. She feels fine now, and I think let's hope that she gets through it. But,
well, hopefully she does not get it and everything's good. You have a good Merry Christmas and everyone's healthy, because that's most important.
I told her just to pretend like we all have the cooties and stay away from all of us.
That's what you gotta do. In a couple 3 days. Today's Tuesday. You'll know by Friday. Okay, you'll know by Friday.
Yep.
Anyway,
my day was great until then.
Yeah, well, I know. I can understand that. We won't spend a lot of time with this. We'll do it towards the end of the show as well. But for those that's coming on in, we've got the so we have a great guest waiting out back, Shane Corson from the Olympic Projects, will be joining us momentarily. Fantastic researcher out in the Pacific Northwest. But really briefly, as we're starting our promotions, right, we've got the Crossing Realms Conference, UFOs, Paranormal, and Cryptids, September 19th and 20th at the Eagleton Civic Center. That's in Richmond, Missouri. And that's tickets have been on sale since December 1st, Krista. And wow, people are responding already.
Yep. Yeah, we're selling tickets, and the ghost hunt. Wow, that's just it's really selling. So yeah, thanks, T-Bone.
We're doing the ghost hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, T-Bone. Always appreciated. We have 5 new BMR pirates. Mateys. Join the few, join the many.
Yep.
T-Bone, always appreciate it, man. Thank you.
For sure.
And at this conference, I'll be there. You'll be there. Brandy will be there. Jason will be there. Texas, the Master of Ceremonies. Randy, Monica Rollins, Daniel Diva from our group. And briefly, and I don't want to waste a lot of time. We'll do it again for the end. But I got to put this up. This is all the speakers.
Let me get the
thanks, T-Bone.
Yep.
You got one of your buddies, Josh Hurd, filmmaker, author, paranormal guy, ghost hunter. Heather Mosier, Small Town Monsters producer. Frankie and Dan from the Haunted Garage. There's Tex up there, Master of Ceremonies. William Lunsford, a researcher, TV personality. Greg Ogles, filmmaker, researcher. Ron Murphy, Lady Ann, Celine, Dr. Dean Bertram, and special guests, Dana Stricker, Ken Gerhardt, and Brent Thomas from the Paranormal Portal. So we've got a great lineup. We have the Ghost Hunt on Saturday. It's got a lot of everything for everybody.
It does. Doesn't matter what you're into, because there's something for everybody between ghosts, the monsters, even the Fae, like Ron Murphy and Lady Celine. They're going to talk about the Fae, and UFOs, Dr. Dean. And so it's whatever you're into.
Yeah. And so, we'll talk about that a little later because we have a fantastic guest.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I mentioned, Shane Corson. He's with the Olympic Project. And what this is it's an association of dedicated researchers, investigators, biologists, and trackers committed to documenting the existence of Sasquatch through science and education. Amongst many of their greatest achievements is locating up to 20 or more possible Sasquatch nesting locations in the PNW, more specifically in the Olympic Forest. And with that being said, a nice brief intro for Shane Corson as I'm about to bring him up. Hey, Shane.
Hi. Hey, Rob. Hey, Krista. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I think when I first started podcasting, you might have been on when I was a rookie. And then I just happened to see you, about a week or so ago on a documentary filmed by the Small Town Monsters group, which Heather Mosier, she's a part of our conference coming up. Beyond the Trail, in fact, the Olympic Bigfoot is what it is, everybody on Small Town Monsters. That's an excellent documentary.
It was.
So I just wanted to flash that for you, bud. And so, excuse me, I'm still under the weather. I'm coughing, I'm sneezing. So if I blank myself out on the screen, you know what I'm doing. But so I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much again.
Yeah.
And so I gave a brief introduction to what you're all about, the Olympic Project, and why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started with this, really?
Yeah, so Shane Corson, obviously I'm with the Olympic Project. I've been actively researching the topic since about 97. I did a lot of stuff in California, specifically Southern California, and then ventured up towards like Yosemite and the Sierras. That was kind of an area of interest for me. It was about 12-hour drive, but I used to, and still do, love to do remote backpacking and exploring. And the Sasquatch phenomenon has always interested me since I was a young lad growing up in Scotland. And, when I came to the States, I was just amazed with the United States, amazed with the fauna, the landscapes, and thought, wow, maybe there is something to this Sasquatch phenomenon. And moving up to Oregon eventually in 2008, having gotten married and moved up to Oregon, I really thought I was in the mecca of Sasquatchery, so to speak, and
Mhm.
and now up here in Washington. But for many years, I was just investigating local reports, interviewing witnesses. I really didn't come across much that I would say was Sasquatch related. And 2011, I had an encounter kind of solidified Sasquatch for me personally. And then 2012ish, I met Derek Randalls of the Olympic Project, who's a co-founder, and he asked me to jump on board with them. We hit it off right off the bat. One of my best friends, a brother from another mother, and he got me involved with the Olympic Project, and I've been going full steam ahead ever since.
Wow.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of your research here in a moment, and you just mentioned that you had your first experience or encounter with a Bigfoot. Can you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll keep it kind of brief, but in 2011, I was out with two coworkers. We decided to go remote backpacking and fishing, which is a huge hobby of mine. I'm a hunter and a fisherman, and I like to combine the fishing with my Sasquatch stuff a lot of times. But this trip here was in the Mount Hood National Forest in August of 2011, an area that we had picked out because of so many high mountain lakes that we could hike into. And we, two buddies of mine, two coworkers, and I went up to this area of Mount Hood and had a 2-night experience where, the first night, and this was supposed to be a 3 to 4 night camp out. The first night, after hiking around, getting lost and making our way back to camp, we had something approach our camp, which sounded like it was clacking rocks. Coming from a distance, but getting closer and closer, and then it would stop the rock clanking if that's what it was doing, and then meander around our camp spot next to this lake, and just it sounded like it was smashing branches and whatnot. And heard that, and that eventually petered out. Whatever it was took off that night, and when it was retreating, it was doing the rock clanking thing, possibly, and left. And the next morning we woke up and talked about it. Could have been elk, could have been deer. We had no idea. Went out to some other high mountain lakes, fished those, came back with the fish, cooked our dinner that second night. Went to bed again as the previous night around 11:30, built a big fire up, and around 1:32 in the morning, same as the night prior, we heard that rock clanking sound coming from a distance towards our camping spot. And the same thing, something was marching around, but it was a lot more intense that night, a lot more breaks. Sound like there's possibly two of whatever it was in the area. And it was moving around our camp, and then above one of my buddy's tents, we're kind of in a triangle formation. One friend's next to the lake, another's towards this little hill, and I'm kind of at the point towards the trail. Something hits a tree 5 times, power knocks, just bam, bam, bam. And Mount Hood National Forest in certain areas are dead quiet. And being close to this lake, you could hear the pounding noise hit the other side of the lake and bounce back. You could feel it reverberate underneath the ground. It was just power knocks, tremendous knocks. After that, after about 5 knocks, something's coming in overhead above our camp through the trees, and you hear this huge thud noise next to my buddy Mitch's tent, who's close to the lake. And we instantly knew, I did, and so did my buddy Mitch, who was awake at the time, knew that something had thrown a rock at us. And you could just hear the thud and coming through the trees. I eventually decide to peer out of my tent. My buddy Ian, that's next to me, was freaking out. He was afraid of bears, and it's a whole nother story, but he was afraid of bears and stuff, and had a pistol on him, and I thought he might do some damage to any one of us, and decided to get out or look out of the tent. And as I'm peering around, hoping I don't see anything, I do see something behind a large Doug fir tree. And what I see is a hand, an arm, and a shoulder. And I see something appearing from behind this tree, just swaying back and forth.
Wow.
It just looked massive. It looked like a refrigerator swaying back and forth behind this tree. Large, hairy, bipedal figure swaying back and forth behind this tree. And I just locked eyes on this thing and was freaked out of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It eventually, seconds, dropped its arm from the tree, walked out from behind the tree, and walked up this trail from the camp and disappeared. I sat there for a few seconds, zipped up my tent, and didn't go back to sleep. Everybody else I could hear them breathing. It was intense.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was really quiet. We woke up the next morning, third morning, planning on being out there 3 to 4 days. And we packed up our camp and got the heck out of there. And what I saw was definitely, without a doubt, a Sasquatch. There's no doubt about it. Having gone back there and measured it, where I saw this thing's head, it was at least 7 to 7.5 feet tall. And it solidified that there was Sasquatch out there. And lo and behold, having done research on the area after the fact, there's a lot of reports from that area, not on your BFRO sites. We're talking gun forums, hiking forums, hammock forums.
Okay.
Wow.
Average people sharing their encounters in non-Bigfoot related forums. And it was just an amazing thing. And then there is a missing guy in this area, which I found fascinating. I'm not even saying it's because of Sasquatch, but his name, I won't mention his name because I don't want to give up the area, but he's been missing. He was missing a year prior to us getting there. And I remember seeing his posters as we were walking into this trail, going to our camp spot. There's a missing guy, or maybe, and I've done it ever since. I go down to Oregon periodically. And when I lived in Oregon at the time, I'd go out there all the time after this encounter. Never had anything happen out there. Some odd noises, found some interesting tracks. But this missing individual is something that's always bothering me because he's a fly fisherman. I know exactly where he was camping, and he was on his way back to the lake we were fishing. And to hear all these crazy stories on these different forums that happen to people. Some people would call them aggressive encounters. To each your own. It depends. What you describe as aggressive. My encounter at the time I thought was super aggressive, but looking back on it, it was more like, you invaded an area, get the heck out of here, throwing rocks, beating a tree, stomping around, wherever that was. And I believe it was a Sasquatch, could have easily come in and tore up our camp. Did not. It was intimidation. Some people might call it aggression, but it was more of an intimidation thing. So that, again, solidified for me that, I had been into Sasquatch research. We were out there on a fishing trip. We weren't banging on trees, yelling. We were just doing average things as average people, fishing and hiking.
So before you peeked out of your tent and saw the arm, were you thinking Bigfoot, or what was going through your mind at that time?
Honestly, I remember laying in my tent on the ground, and my heart was beating so fast. Blood was pumping. If there was any vocals going on or anything, I never heard them. I never heard any vocals, but what was going through my mind before I opened the tent was, at that time, Sasquatch did not quite enter my head. I was just freaked out. I don't know what was going on. Eventually, I started thinking, possibly, is this what people experience? Is this what goes on during an encounter? And we're talking a 2-night experience where this thing came back, or things came back 2 nights in a row, which is almost unprecedented. You don't hear about that. I've never had that sort of experience again. And I got a lot of questions about that. I want to answer, but no, I was just pure fear, adrenaline. I've hiked Yosemite, ran into black bear. Up here in Washington, I bump into black bear all the time, elk, deer, coyotes, all sorts of animals, in weirdo people in the weirdest spots. This was something I had never experienced before. And I couldn't categorize it in my head. It was just odd.
Prior to this experience, you already were out in the field doing research. Is that correct?
Yes. before I got involved with the Olymp project, I thought I was doing research. When I got involved with the Olymp project, I realized that I really wasn't doing research. I was, out there interviewing people. I thought I knew what I was looking for. I'm looking for tracks. When I got involved with the Olympic project, when Derek Randall's brought me aboard, I learned so much about documentation, about real tracking, about where to place yourself. And when you experience something, one of the downfalls from my original encounter was I had no way to document it. I didn't have audio with me. I didn't have a FLIR with me, a thermal unit. I had nothing. Just a couple guys out there hiking around and fishing. So it's just a story, and I get that, and I'm cool with that, and I don't even like to bring up my encounter anymore because it's just a story. But when I joined the Olympic project, I realized that everything I called research was kind of a fallacy, and I wasn't really documenting anything. I wasn't, sharing stuff. And so, I was a investigator researcher, but I really wasn't doing it properly or correctly. And it wasn't again till I got involved with the Olympic project that I learned a lot, and it's brought me to where I'm at now and who I work with.
You make an interesting point. You mentioned you really don't like talking about or telling your encounter, your experience with Sasquatch. And, I must say that last year, or maybe a little over a year ago, I said public on one of my shows that, hey, I'm done telling my encounter story because I've said it 1,000 times. You've all heard it. And, let's talk about something else outside of my experience, which was, albeit tremendous. And then, a lot of people were like, well, Rob, there's the new people that never heard it. And a lot of people said, we love hearing it. And I'm like, okay. But then I realized something else too. And it was funny because somebody asked me, hey, Rob, how come you always talk about Bigfoot crossing the road? And I'm like, well, because whether you think it's boring or whatever it is, it's data. It's data. And then I got back to thinking about my encounter. I'm like, boy, Rob, I just made a statement that went against myself when I said, hey, I'm done doing my story. Yeah, my story is data. Bigfoot crossing the road is data. Your encounter was data. And I believe, for me, first and foremost, in this field, this research, whatever you want to call it, data is the number one most important thing. So now I'm like, you know what? I'll tell my story, despite the fact that I think people have heard it. There might be one that didn't. There might be one person I can help. And it's on the records. So what's your thoughts on that about data and all that?
That's a good point. That's a great point, Rob. And the thing is, I don't want my encounter to define me. There's what people don't realize is that a lot of people get into what we do because of an encounter, something they can't explain, something they cannot deny.
Yes.
And it happened to me. I mean, I was up until that encounter, I was, 40, 60, maybe Sasquatch is real. I thought the Patterson film was legit, but I was like, you never know. And so I was of the opinion that, maybe Sasquatch exists, maybe it doesn't. I never found an impression, never found a track, never found, and never had an experience other than known animals.
Right.
So I always been of the opinion, I don't want that to define me because a lot of people get a lot of flack when they get into this field because of their encounters, because of their experience. And, there's different types of people, right? There's some that have the encounter, they shut up about it. There's those that have an encounter, they tell a few people, it doesn't go anywhere. And then there's those that have the encounters and they're like, I want to know more about this. Like me, like I'm all boots in. Let's see see if I can figure this out. And that's where I was at that time. And now, I mean, I'll shout from the rooftops. Sasquatch exists without a doubt. Like yourself, I've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of witnesses. And I encourage those investigators and researchers out there if you're really serious about the subject matter, document everything, even the mundane things. Document the stuff that doesn't happen, and then when something does happen, it will stick out like a sore thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know one of your biggest findings, and they're all first of all, I will say this, and I shouldn't say biggest. I don't mean it like that. Any evidence you come across to me is a nice, great finding. And of course, you had found, as you had that documentary about the nests, which we'll get into a little bit, but you did send me a whole bunch of pictures. I would sprinkle the pictures in throughout the show that you can maybe, as you're so kind to send a few over. I'm going to pull up a couple. Well, these first ones, though, are just some action shots. I mean, maybe there's something behind it, maybe not. I like that one. You're putting up a game cam in this one. And what I'm doing with these pictures in the beginning shows the lay of the land where you're doing your research. So this is just you putting up a game camera. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually Chris Spencer setting up a thermal camera. And that's Rebecca Ann Slick, his wife, down below. That's Chris Spencer setting up a thermal camera. A lot of times we'll go out to these areas. We still utilize game cameras, but we've really gone down the thermal route and experimenting with that. I have been fortunate I believe to have seen Sasquatch with a thermal at least twice over the years. And these new, some of the new pieces, the new equipment we have can record for multiple days and, nighttime and day. But that's kind of our new MO, kind of what we're really focusing on. It's the one, I think, missing piece to our puzzle. We've seen some stuff out in these areas, but record it. It won't prove Sasquatch exists, but it will add a piece to at least our puzzle. And that's kind of what we're focusing on. And that's, like I said, Chris Spencer and Rebecca Ann Slick there. Yeah.
I got to ask about therm cameras too, because I think they're a great piece of equipment to have out in the field. And I always find it like, wow, on a therm, you could distinctively see a deer, right? With the heat signature. And then I got to ask you, you said you've possibly seen a Sasquatch in yours. How can you tell? Because a lot of the ones that I've seen, it's like a big blobby mass. You can tell it's something. It's got movement, but there's no definition. Have you, when you've seen is that the same for you, or can you see an actual humanoid, something that's not a deer or a bear, or how do you tell the difference?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It really is. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. But so in the early days when I got involved and got my hands on thermal equipment, most of the stuff I was using at the time could not record, which is horrible. It's, another story. I can see it. I can't record it. I can put my phone up to it and it's raining outside and you're trying to record it. A joke. And even that thermal equipment I was using at that time, we're talking Oregon and even Washington, was good. But the key and we have updated models now that you can see the hair on an animal. You can zoom in up to 4x. You can change the color palettes. The color palettes are huge for me, and I'll get into that in a second. But, you can definitely tell what you're looking at, especially nowadays. And you can record. A lot of your thermal units now have internal storage, and so you just plug in your computer and you can download everything. And you have different contrasts. So you can zoom in, zoom out, adjust the contrast. And I always recommend if you have and you do need to have a decent thermal camera. I get this question all the time. People, and I understand these things are still expensive. They're dropping down in price, but they're still expensive. But save up your pennies and get the best model you can afford that has all the features that you want for your environment. And it will do you justice. Don't get the bottom line stuff because you want to see those features. You want to be able to zoom in. You want it to be able to, change the contrast, the zoom, and focus in on what you're seeing because you don't want those blob photos. Those don't do anybody service. You can know what you're looking at, but it won't prove, or it won't do anything or anybody any justice by just showing a hot signature. It could be an elk, it could be a bear, it could be a person, it could be anything. You really have to do your due diligence and your homework on these thermal units, and we've got quite a few now that are stellar. I mean, really stellar. I mean, I could zoom in on a person's face and see their facial features. And so, yeah, I mean, it's important, and it progressed over time. And this is self-funded. So everything we're putting into this now, for the most part, we have gotten a few gifts from a few benefactors, friends of ours that are like, hey, we love what you're doing. Let me help you out. And so we have benefited from that. We never asked for it, but we have benefited from that. But when it comes to, I tell people this all the time, with AI nowadays, it's so hard to figure out what's real and what's fake, right? Well, one of the things I love to do, even with known animals, I was out in an area in Western Washington a few months ago, and I was filming a herd of elk, and I would zoom in. You know, I love practicing, and that's a huge thing too. Is whatever piece of equipment you have, practice, know that unit inside and out. So when something happens, you are so prepared to know the functions, you know, because a lot of these thermal units, they have multiple buttons. You know, it's like playing an instrument. You don't even have to think about it. Your fingers just go where they need to go. And I've gotten really good at it. I'm by no means an expert, but, you know, I'm filming this herd of elk, and I zoomed in. And one of the things I love to do, because this is hard for hoaxers to do and AI to do, is change the color palettes as you're recording from, say, rainbow to black and white to hot white to you name it, green. If you change the color palettes, you see the different heat signatures on that figure, that animal. And that's very hard to hoax. And, you know, if somebody's wearing a suit, for example, you'd be able to pick that apart instantly. You know, say you're looking at a Sasquatch and someone's like, oh, that's a guy in a suit. Well, if you can change the color palettes and check out the different heat signatures, it's pretty profound. And I've done this with humans, you know, people walking around, animals, and it's all about recording that stuff, experimenting with that stuff, experimenting with the equipment. That really paints a picture.
Wow. So how long has the Olympic project been, you guys all been a team? I know you said you joined in 2012, but how long was it going on before that?
So the Olympic project was originally founded by Derek Randalls and Rich Strameau. Rich Strameau's a former cop, and he and Derek Randall started in 2009-ish, started a camera, game camera kind of group. That's where the Olympic project started, with just game cameras. They would go up to the high peaks of the Olympic mountains, and they won quite a few contests with known animals via their game camera work, and even have a few odd things they found on the game cameras.
Wow.
So it's up for interpretation, but that's how it started in 2009 between those two guys. David Ellis, he's one of our audio gurus with the Olympic project. He got involved, and then it kind of formulated around this camera project, and now it's since elaborated into the fact that we're doing multiple different things, and we kind of have a core group now that really gets out to the woods, a smaller group that really gets out there and documents everything and experiments.
How often do you guys get out?
I'm out daily, sometimes every week. Yeah. As a group, once a month, maybe twice a month, periodically. Depends on what we're doing, where we're going, and what we're trying to implement. You know, Chris Spencer, he's kind of another audio guru of ours. He's self-purchased SM4 units, which is a bioacoustical professional recorder that biologists use to track different animals. And so a lot of things we do now is based on audio to see what's going on in certain areas, because it's one of the most least intrusive things you can do in the woods. You know, you're not sticking a camera up there. You're just putting audio units out there, and you leave it to record, and then eventually you pick up the SD cards out of those units and you review them visually. And Chris Spencer's been doing that for many years now. I do a little bit of it, nothing like what Chris Spencer does, and David Ellis does a lot of that. So we're out. I mean, I'm out all the time. Personally, I'm out all the time.
Yeah. Wow.
Speaking of where you're at really quickly, I know you have something else, Krista. I want to give the lay of the land. This is kind of your area too. This is what's that down in the center? Is that a rock formation or something?
No, that's Chris Spencer putting one of his audio units out there.
Wow, that is some thick forest, isn't it?
That's thick, eh?
Yeah. So this particular area, this is kind of the general area where the nests are located, and it's hasn't been logged in over 50 years, closer to 60 now. And you got that thick huckleberry, and that's where we're traversing. There's no trails.
Right.
It's off trail hiking and exploring. It's you can run into a bear any given time, any other animal. It's very thick. It's always wet. It's just always wet.
Wow. I could definitely see where things can hide in there.
And here's another action shot here. You guys out in the field.
Wow.
That's I'm going through some of the, just showing everybody, the audience that's watching on video.
Yeah. That right there, you got Rebecca Ann Slick on the left, you got Chris Spencer, you got Todd Hell on the far right, and then you have Barcatino, who's out of California. He's famous for the Sierra footage. He's a good friend and member of the Olympic Project, makes it up here periodically. Probably the best guy I know when it comes to thermal use, and it shows because he's got some of the best thermal footage and documentation out there out of the Sierras, and we love Barcatino.
Wow.
And look at that, Chris, how thick that is. There's another shot. I mean, you guys are working your rear end off, traversing through this, aren't you?
Yeah, that's a dry day too. And usually it's pissing down, rain, wet. You're falling. Right. When you get into that thick stuff, that huckleberry and the salal, which is like the base layer, you're tripping, you're falling. There's no sneaking into these areas. You're just it's impossible. You can try. There's Rebecca Ann Slick and Chris Spencer, and he's setting up one of his SM4 recording units. And Rebecca's awesome because she's one of her, an amazing documentarian, which she documents everything, photos, videos, and she knows her outdoors, her fauna, her plants. She's an amazing person. I'm so proud to work with these guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I like it. You have a great team there thanks, Gary. Well, really quickly, let's just thank Gary. Just thank you right off the get-go. T-Bone, JoJo, Maggie, and now Gary for your contributions with a super sticker or a membership. 5 more new pirate members. Thanks, Gary Spikes, T-Bone, JoJo, and Maggie. Thank you so much. But what I was getting back, though, when I read your bio, I read a little bit on air here. I love the fact that you've got biologists, natural resource people, researchers. You have a nice meld, a nice mix of people to run ideas off of. And I bet you that helps you out when you're doing your research, does it not? Absolutely, because I'm just a layman. I'm not a professional tracker, but I do believe I'm a good tracker. I'm very observant, but I'm just a layman. I'm the guy that gets out in the woods and hits it hard and puts myself in precarious situations sometimes. I'm that guy. But having not just wildlife biologists involved, but also archaeologists like Cindy Cadell, they add a value in foresight and hindsight that I don't have. And so I can reflect off of them, ask them questions for documentation purposes, for viewing purposes, for measurements, all sorts of stuff. So we're really blessed, and it's kind of a unique scenario where we have such a good group of like-minded but professional individuals. That goes a long way. It really does.
Yes. And then as much as you guys, get out, I mean, not that I'm knocking other researchers at all. So please, anybody in chat, don't think I am. But you guys are out there to actually get the evidence. And I feel like you have to be out there more than just, once a month or once every couple weeks to really get what you guys are getting, man.
Truly. So one of the reasons I moved up to Washington was to be closer to the Olympics. Once I got into this nest area for the first time, and I was living down in Oregon at the time, I was absolutely freaking blown away. And we were kind of looking to move anyways. And lo and behold, we found the perfect spot and made it closer for me to research. But yeah, and it's no knock on anybody. Everybody has different lifestyles, different jobs. I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of free time to get out to the woods. I made it that way. That's my lifestyle. And so I'm very fortunate to do that. Many people can't. And there's many great groups out there, many great individuals doing amazing things. I don't want to make the Limp Project look like it's the end all be all. We're just an organization trying to go about what we do. And, but there's many great organizations and groups and individuals doing amazing things. So, but yeah, it is to me key to be out there as much as you can, methodically, because a lot of what we do is sometimes we'll leave an area for months on end and just put audio units out there recording for 2 to 3 months. And we just leave that area alone. And we review the audio to see, we just got done doing a 2-year project where we recorded every single night. And through people like Chris Spencer reviewing the audio from every single night, we recorded every known animal. And then we recorded everything, but we visually looked at stuff, especially Chris Spencer, and documented, okay, this is a coyote, this is a bear, this is an elk, this is a deer, this is a fox, this is a raven. And then we had some suspect stuff. By being out of that area for a spell, we had stuff even thrown at some of these recorders. We had, I sent you a few audio pieces, Rob, but the audio.
I'm going to play those in a little bit. I got 3 pieces that I'll bring up. Yes.
Yeah. And I won't even say those are the best. They're just some of the ones that there's a story behind some of those. So, but if you can't be in the woods and all the time or get out there and because I like off trail stuff. A lot of people don't have that opportunity, or they like to stick to trails. And I get that. I'm not saying get off trail. That's just what I like to do. I think that's where the wild things are. That's why we don't find a whole lot of tracks and we don't get things on game cameras, because to put a game camera, and some of those pictures you shared earlier, to put a game camera in that huckleberry would be a joke. You got wind blowing, you're going to get 1,000 shots of huckleberry. But that's where these things are really moving, I think. And they do cross game trails, just like probably your encounter. They cross roads periodically. But nobody in their right mind is going to place a game camera in that thick stuff because, as a hunter, I know where to put a game camera for deer, for elk, for bear or cougar. I know eventually I will get my quarry on there. Sasquatch, whole different thing. And that's where people knock on game cameras. Most of those game cameras are being placed on trails and in open areas. Not that Sasquatch doesn't traverse those areas, but you're looking for a minute thing and a moving needle in a haystack, So the more time you spend out there, put some audio out there, record and document every known animal.
I was going to ask you this too, because you brought up something that I'm a believer in. My encounter, though, was not off trail. Mine was in a remote part of the Manistee National Forest. And I was on a lake, and it came out of the wood line to the shoreline, which was like just incredible to see this. I was 90 feet away. But you made a great point. And I think that people can find Sasquatch, and we hear about Sasquatch, again, crossing the road, a freeway, a trail. But I was talking to some people that have been researching 20, 30 years, and they say, Rob, everybody that researches, yes, you can go on the trail and you can set up your campsite 50 feet, 25 yards away and set up your site. Because if you want to get to the nuts and bolts, there's a couple things. One, they suggest you go off trail, go through where a person does not want to go through, which means, much like your pictures, trudge through the forest, cut through the brush, set up your own, whack away your own site, your own camping site, I should say. And they also say, you know, as much as I love the weekend warriors that are into this, a lot of times, because I believe, I don't know if your thoughts are this way, I think a lot of the Sasquatch are socialized, right? And I think after 2 or 3 days and get up and go back home is defeating the purpose. I think a lot of times it takes them 2 or 3 days to warm up to you before they maybe get close to your camp. Mind you, they're probably watching your camp from a distance. But if you want to capture something, I think you got to be there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all like Chris always says, and I think your intentions have to be that of, hey, I'm just here with Mother Nature, wondering what's out in the forest.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing with people in general is look at animals. We are, as humans, are so predictable. We have our trails. We stick to our trails. We stick to our camp spots. I'm of the opinion that when you become unpredictable, it brings upon curiosity. Like, why is this person traversing these, off-trail areas? Why are they going through there? And that may produce an encounter, a sighting. Not all the time, because, like you said, a lot of the most known, sightings they're roadside crossings. I mean, just something going from point A to point B. That's the number one sighting, is a roadside crossing. Period, bar none. Of course, there's more people driving on roads than there are out hiking in these areas. But I'm of the opinion, if you can make yourself a little less predictable, like get off trail, put a camp spot in a spot that nobody camps, not a known camp spot, and they do occur. I mean, sightings do occur around those spots. But making yourself unpredictable, I think, is a key to, over and over again, and then spending time out there, like you said, Rob, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nights, not just an overnighter.
Right.
Usually, I mean, when I'm out in the woods, I mean, honestly, 10 times out of 10, almost nothing ever happens. It's just that one time that, after months and months and months of camping, you have something significant happen. And then you have to be ready to document it, capture that moment, audio, whatever you have in your possession. Because at this point in time, I don't want to come away with a story anymore. I have too many stories, and they're cool and they're documented well. But, I want to show more than, just a fireside chat story. I want to show something that's, and like I said, being unpredictable, I think, is a huge thing. As a deer hunter, for example, I hunt blacktail. That's all we have up here in Western Washington is blacktail deer. And they call them the ghosts of the woods. They're the hardest blacktail, I think, to hunt in the country, period. People can argue with me about that. But blacktail they call them ghosts of the woods because they'll just appear out of nowhere. They go through that thick huckleberry and you don't even hear them, and they'll just appear. And but they know our human habits. They know what we're doing. They just get used to it. And you tell me Sasquatch doesn't? They know exactly what we're up to and what we're doing. And they're always observant. And so you got to kind of throw them for a loop every once in a while, I believe.
So I have a question. When you guys go out, like there's people that like to go out and they like to knock on the trees or do the howls, or some people just like to sit and let them come to them. What is your preferred method?
Excellent question. So, I don't bag on anybody for what they do. If they want to go knock on a tree or yell, do it. Not our MO. It's not what we do. What I love to do is exactly what I just said before, is I like to get off trail and make myself unpredictable. Right. I like to get off trail, leave my scent everywhere, hike around, just be a kind of a jerk in the woods, or just an average person where you're just getting off trail and hiking around. And this goes back to my original encounter. This is something, when I had my encounter in August of 2011, I'm like, why did we have a 2-night experience? Why did this Sasquatch or Sasquatches come back 2 nights in a row? And I reflected upon that big time. We had gone off trail. We got lost. 2 of my buddies and I got lost looking for another lake. We got off trail. We're annoyed with each other. We're walking around. We're going through the brush. We're off trail. We're on trail. We're off trail. We're making noise. We're urinating, everything you would do in the woods. And then we came back to our camp. I think we disturbed something up on this ridge line that was like, didn't expect anybody to be there. I didn't expect to be there. And I was there. And I think we were unpredictable. And so I like to be unpredictable. I like to get out there and because if you're out there in off trail, you're going to come across stuff, whether it's known animal or not. But maybe you'll come across something that just defies logic, knowing that it's not human or known animal behavior. And that's where you're going to find that stuff. Yeah. Periodically. But that's kind of what we do, or at least what I do for sure, is when I'm out camping specifically, I like to set my camp up and go hike everywhere as much till I get tired and come back to camp, hoping that I'll attract something that's in the area to come back to my camp and go, what is this fool doing out here? So that's kind of what we do. We don't go out there knocking on trees because, if we have a campfire, we're splitting wood. That sounds like a knock. We're just being natural. Everything we do is natural. I have done yells in the past, and every once in a while, if I'm out for 3 to 4 days and there's nothing going on and I got to go home, I'm like, I got nothing to lose. I'm going to make a yell, and every once in a while it pays off, whether it's Sasquatch or not. I've set off coyotes before. That's kind of our angle.
Yeah, well, you know what? Hey, listen, man. I got to watch what I say here. Because I so get what you're saying, because we've all seen the shows. Now, Cliff Barackman, I got a picture of you with him. I'm going to show that. Hey, I love the guy. I met him twice. I like him. I like the show. It's entertaining. But, and not even talking about TV, let me see. And after doing this a while, I kind of got this in my head. If a human being is trying to whoop and holler and scream like a Bigfoot, aka Sasquatch, or take a baseball bat to an oak tree, they damn well know it's a human being. If they happen to respond because they're playing games with you, and like you said, half the time you're going to rustle up the coyotes, maybe some wolves if you got them in the area. It's not going to be authentic to me. And now when I look back and look at these guys with these crazy sounds they're making, now I kind of laugh. No disrespect. You know what, man? If I'm in the woods, I'll throw off a whoop, just because why not? But when I'm looking seriously, I'm to act like you said. Some guy, some dumb local has no business in the woods. I played that game. Played a game that you're just some dummy from the city out camping, showing no interest in Bigfoot at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny if you look at the vast majority of reports and encounters, people seeing a Sasquatch. It's people out there hiking, fishing, hunting, walking, driving. It's not your researcher, Right. Unfortunately, it's not. And there's a lot of things to that. But I call me a researcher, investigator, enthusiast. I really don't care.
Yeah.
But for me to go out there and do that stuff and expect something back, and again, as a hunter, I'm not going to go out there and yell for a bear. I mean, I could play some distress calls and maybe pull in a bear, and maybe that'll work for Sasquatch. I don't know. But I'm not going to go out there and yell because most animals retreat, like, oh, that's a person yelling. I don't want to be near them. I'm going to back off and disappear. People occasionally do get responses that maybe are Sasquatch related, but I just it's not a thing for us. Every decent encounter that I'll call an encounter, possibly with Sasquatch, since my original encounter, it's just been out there doing what we've been doing, and experiencing it, and just being an observation of curiosity for something to come in and check us out. And that's where I've had the best stuff happen.
Yeah, that was the same for us too. We had a Bigfoot encounter last year. My Blondes and Blues partner Brandy and I in southern Missouri, and it was right after a thunderstorm, and there was a bunch of us camping out there, and I think, you know, they have been watching us for a few days, and that night, literally, I didn't actually see it. I saw the shadow with the moonlight is what I seen through my tent. So that's why I asked you what you were thinking in your tent. I get that, because I had that. I was kind of freaking out. I'm not going to lie, you know, like there, I could hear it out there, and I saw it. I saw the shadow of it. Brandy, however, was in her car. She actually saw a visual with it. But that was my point that I was trying to see, you know, what you guys prefer to, because we weren't doing any tree knocking. We weren't, you know, hollering for them or anything. And we all just went to bed and they came up into camp. So I think that's really cool. Like, I think they were watching, and then we ended up getting, you could see where they walked. You know, we have a path. You could see where they came right behind. They were within like 5 feet behind my tent, right by my head, you know. And so it's just a really cool experience, you know, and that's why I was curious, because, you know, I some people do have luck by tree knocking and, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't knock them either, but it's just not what we were doing when we had ours.
Yeah, no pun intended, right? No knocking on them, but
right.
yeah, no, that's the thing too, is just being out there and being observant and that sort of scenario, I think works the best. And like I said, I don't bash anybody who does that stuff. I know people have had results. I've had results doing, I believe, doing that stuff. But it seems that when you don't do that and you're just being mundane and usual, being a little unpredictable, things approach your camp a lot closer.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
My experience.
Well, we ended up, you know, we got, there was 14-inch impressions right behind my tent. We had, because it had rained, you know, it was right after a storm. And then you could see the push trail where it went all through camp. So it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, you brought up the rain up here in Washington. I mean, it rains 9 months out of the year. And, you know, I notice a lot of investigators or researchers, and I get it. Certain parts of the country, you know, winter hits, you can't get out. I mean, you literally can't get out. Up here where I live, fortunately, in the Olympics, it's pretty temperate. We get snow up in the higher elevations. We get a ton of rain. But if I'm not in the woods in the rain, I'm not experiencing all seasons. And a lot of the more suspicious stuff that's happened to me, whether it's down in the Tillamook Forest down in Oregon or up here in the Olympics of Washington or Mount Hood, has happened in the rain. I don't think if you look at, you know, elk and deer and some of these other animals, the rain really doesn't bother them. I don't think it bothers Sasquatch, and it provides them a lot of cover to move around. So, yeah, I mean, Missouri, heck yeah.
Krista, you chimed in at the right time, because I had about a 30-second sneezing and coughing attack. So perfect timing.
Figured.
You must have figured I was holding it back a little bit.
Yeah, I still have questions though, but I know we need to move on.
No, we can go on. I got stuff too, and go ahead. Thanks. That was perfect, because most people know I'm still a little sick, Shane, and I've had this for a few days. It's getting better. I'm getting better.
Good.
And did you have another question, Krista? Because I was going to show a couple tracks. You do go ahead. Are you going to wait?
I wanted
keep going, Krista.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the Sierra Sounds.
Yeah. I know. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what do you think of them? Because, you know, Ron Moorhead, you know, I've met him several times. He's a nice guy. And actually, we've had him on our show, and I believe BMR's had him on too. But he's very genuine and very real, you know, and I fully believe those sounds. Have you heard anything like that? And what are your thoughts on the Sierra Sounds?
Oh, the Sierra Sounds are phenomenal. You know, I can't 100% say they're Sasquatch, but I know Ron Moorhead very well. He lived up here an hour and a half away from me for many years, and we hung out a ton, and just a great guy. One of the most genuine guys you'll ever meet. An absolute bad mamma jamma when it comes to exploration and all that stuff. He's done some amazing stuff in his life, and I'm sad he moved to the East Coast. You know, he's I think in North Carolina now, or South Carolina, one or the other. But what they captured in the Sierras is phenomenal. It really is. It's phenomenal. And I'm a proponent that they're most likely Sasquatch. Ron Moorhead is not a hoaxer or a liar.
I agree.
Absolutely,
I agree.
He's
I
like
agree.
Bob Gimlin. I know Bob
Mhm.
Gimlin very well, and I'm not showboating names. He's just a good person. I got to know him
Sure.
over the years, and not a liar, not a
Mhm.
lying.
Well, I don't think you're showboating. Look who we have here.
Yeah. Hey, I've sung karaoke with Bob Gimlin. Pretty cool.
Hey.
That's up to the OP cabinet.
And really quickly, is this a part of your headquarters?
Yes, that's up at the OP headquarters up in the Olympics. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
Bob Gimlin and Shane. And I gotta tell you guys, I'm not showing. This the only picture I'm showing of the headquarters. But dude, your headquarters.
Awesome.
I could live in your headquarters, man.
I
You
partly
even
do.
have a bar in there, for God's sakes.
Oh, I partly do. It's amazing. It's an amazing, and the amount of historical stuff in there is amazing. There's so much history. It's truly an honor and a blessing to be involved with the Olympic Project and utilize those headquarters. We've had, it's kind of our hub and our launching point. So it's a great area. And Ron Moorhead's been there many, many times. And so I've got to sit down with Ron and really analyze everything that transpired up in the Sierras. And so, I mean, as far as, we recorded stuff, not on par, not on the same caliber as Ron Moorhead. I remember having this conversation with my buddy Chris Spencer of the Olympic Project, where we hadn't recorded anything like what Ron had recorded. But then there was this period, I think it was, I don't even want to give a date, maybe 2021. I'm probably wrong, where we recorded something similar, and Chris Spencer, I can't remember if it was Chris Spencer or David Ellis, sent it to Ron, and Ron thought it was part of his recordings. And in fact, it wasn't. It was one of our recordings, but it was so similar, much shorter, but so similar. And there's a lot of those recordings out there. Like, people don't know that. They think that the Ron Moorhead recordings are a one-off. Yes, for its length, sure.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of recordings very similar to Ron Moorhead's recordings, and they defy logic, they defy known animals. And so, I mean, it's interesting, and that's something we're always trying to do, placing this audio stuff out there. I think Ron Moorhead landed himself in the perfect storm, and that's why he recorded that stuff. Being so remote, I mean, he goes more remote. He went more remote than we currently do. I go remote and all that stuff we do, but he was a way out there in the Sierras. I know exactly where the location's at and all that, but he landed in the perfect storm. And so, hey, it's standing the test of time.
It has. And I got to ask you something, because a good friend of mine in the chat room, Rags, who's been a subscriber for a couple of years now, thanks, Rags, brought up something. I just had made a comment I happened to see, which I believe, I mean, why, how should I say? I guess I kind of think I would not do this. Now, we've talked about, we're not proponents of doing the whoop, the human whoop, the sound. I mean, for shits and giggles, okay, maybe knock on a tree, I get it. But here's the thing, though. I don't think that I would take out the Sierra sounds and blast them in the middle of the forest, because number one, you don't know what the Sasquatch is saying, right? And I think that could be a danger zone. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I've never done it. I want to say that maybe David Ellis, before I got involved with the Olympic Project, may have done that. I could be wrong. But then again, you can blast the stuff out there, but there's no Sasquatch around. You're not going to get anything happen.
Right.
We have played, we have gotten some interesting stuff happen over the years, including a thermal sighting of 2 individuals after playing whale sounds.
Wow.
It just random. David Ellis this is years and years ago. We really don't do that anymore, but call blasting whale sounds and other stuff out into a mountain range. We had some stuff happen after that. I've personally never done that. I've been involved with that stuff. I don't know if we've ever call blasted that, but I'll tell you something. Derek Randall's long time ago, way before I was involved, probably, I'm guessing he did this early 2000s to mid 2000s, 2005. He went out into an area of the Blue Mountains, and Derek Randall's he recorded his son crying. And he went out into this area in the Blue Mountains, kind of near where Paul Freeman had this stuff happen. And he put a tape recorder out there and just blasted it out there. And he had an encounter where something he could hear it coming down this mountainside, just thrashing around, and it get right up next to him. And he's 7 to 8 miles out in the middle of nowhere by himself. And there's a stream in between. And this thing comes up right next to this creek, and it's pitch black, and you could hear it breathing. I mean, just wow. And I remember him telling me, and he's talked about this quite a few times. He said he would never do that again for two reasons. One, it scared the crap out of him because he played those sounds, and something came down this mountainside and came right up to this creek, and they found a good track the next day on the other side. I mean, obviously a Sasquatch, but he felt bad by playing his son's crying sounds and dragging this thing off the mountain. He said he would never do it again. And I thought about doing it, but I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if it's a just thing. I don't know.
Well, I've heard not about your friend playing the son crying, but I've heard this, that especially in Alaska, I don't know about the lower 48. And Krista, I'm getting with this is Small Town Monsters, Alec Petikoff. They were out researching in what was the name of the what was it, Alaska? The name slips me, but they heard in the forest cries of children, babies crying in the forest in Alaska. But Shane, at this particular site, the crying of the babies only occurred when there was women at the campsite. When it was just all men, it did not. Now, some suggested it was luring the females into the wilderness, and then the speculation that, and some people suggested it wasn't Sasquatch. It might have been the legendary Otter Man that supposedly lures women with baby sounds into the ocean and drowns them. Again, I don't know if that exists. I believe in anything today, but that's what I've heard. And I think, though, this Sasquatch might be attracted to women and children more so than men, because we're more threatening to men.
Yeah, I mean,
Sasquatch men are. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I have a huge comment. I think, I mean, I've worked with a number of individuals over the years, and just me personally believe there is something to the women aspect, kids and autistic people. There's, kids get out there and they laugh and they're small, and then, women are women. Sure. I remember in the general vicinity where I had my encounter, I brought Cindy Cadell out there one year. She's an archaeologist. She's a BFRO member and an Olymp Project member. And I brought her out to this area with her daughter and a few others. And this particular night, it was a windy night. And I heard 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard something walking around. And there's bear up there and everything else. So, you're like, But it was really close to our camp. And I remember hearing something walk up behind Cindy's tent, and she could retell the story too, because we didn't know each other were awake at that time. I didn't know Cindy was awake, and she didn't know I was awake. But I heard something walk up behind her tent, and it sounded like a waterfall. Something was taking a big leak. I mean, just somewhere behind her tent. I could hear it, just like, and it was a little bit windy, but I'm like, oh, that's water, and there's no water back there. And as I'm laying there in my tent, on my back, behind me there's a tree, and it was windy, it was waving, but then I see something take out the tree, just shadow-wise, and walk away. I got out of my tent. That's what I do now. I don't really have any fear anymore. Respect of fear, but I want to see it, and I never saw it. I hear something walk off, and I didn't have a therm on me at the time. But anyways, I was always wondered why, if it was a Sasquatch, why it walked behind her tent and took a leak. You know, I don't know what else would do that. I mean, if you ever heard an elk take a leak, it's pretty loud.
Mm-hmm.
But this sounded bipedal and large. But if you look at, there's so many stories out there. I mean, with kids seeing Sasquatch and then hanging around, and then autistic people. I got quite a few reports about autistic people, and there's nothing weird about it. Autistic people generally are predictable. They do the same things. They have the same mannerisms. You know, I won't mention the individuals I was working with, but they had an uncle that was very autistic, and he claimed to have seen Sasquatch. And in fact, after the fact, the family seen Sasquatch on the property, but it always seemed to be kind of hanging around that guy, like nearby. And so there's something to that. I think, you know, kids are fairly predictable. Women, maybe it's a pheromone, maybe it's just their laughter, their smell. I don't know, but they're quite well, maybe something to that.
Wow.
You know, look at known primates. Look at known primates, for example, how they react to men over women and children. They're very, there's a complete difference in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, and I seen that Krista started a question, which is around the subject before we turn a little bit. It's this is from Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Okay, this is a question most won't like. Well, I think it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Could they react to a woman's monthly cycle? And I was kind of alluding to that just a little bit without saying it.
Yeah,
there's no. That's fine
I
saying
was
that.
thinking the same thing. I was going to ask as well. So
Yeah,
we're adults here. Yeah, it's not a.
Yeah, I mean it's nothing out of taste.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, people have done experiments with. I mean, some crazy experiments with the menstrual cycle of women and hung stuff out there. We'll say, you know, most animals. I mean, especially like your predators can smell blood and recognize that. I mean, even known primates. Look at some of your zookeepers. They talk about that. They recognize that a woman is on there, and they'll keep them sometimes from those areas. So, doesn't defy logic. Is it a thing? Who knows? But it's an interesting possible facet to this. Absolutely. Like I said, I worked with not talking about menstrual cycles, but I worked with a particular woman up here in the Pacific Northwest that she used to work for National Geographic, a photographer, amazing woman. And she lived at this semi-remote area, and her husband worked out of town for a lot of the year. And this house had been vacant for many years, and they moved in there and it worked out of town. She saw a Sasquatch, but that based on the audio and I spent quite a few nights on her property when she actually moved out of the house. They sold it partly because of this Sasquatch behavior.
Wow.
But it seemed to me at the time, and I could be wrong about this, just pure speculation. It was fixated on her. And she had animals, and they had so much weird stuff happened. Gates that were bent. There was tracks found, stuff thrown. But it seemed to be fixated on her. And this house was like kind of a cabin with open windows, and it would watch her from the tree line. Yeah. Wow. What you know, and it's very interesting. It's something I think about all the time, especially when kind of off subject, but when there's a vacant house or a vacant cabin in kind of semi-remote area, and it's vacant for a while, I've noticed over the years there's a pattern where people move in there and they start having activity. It's like, oh, this house was vacant. The Sasquatch probably, you know, just like bear or anything else, used to moving in and out of these areas, and all of a sudden someone's there and they get fixated on it, and they're like curious. I've seen this time and time again, but specifically with women.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
It's all women and small children are always fascinating when it comes to the subject. It really is. And I want to get into a couple more pictures. I do want to get to the nesting as well, but you've sent me so many cool pictures. I was
going to say, when you get to the nesting, I think Brown Dwarf had a question about the nesting area. So.
what I've got here first are some prints that in the ground that you kind of measured off, and I'd like you to speak on. Here's the first one, Shane, that you got. If you're gonna just walk us through this one.
Yeah, it's just what's cool about that one there, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a really interesting impression we found off trail again, and a lot of the impressions that we find of interest are, you basically stumble across them. I mean, you have to almost step on them because they're just through the thick stuff. One of the things we like to do is obviously give measurement there. A lot of people will be looking at it going, well, I see an impression. But when you find 3 or 4 of those in a certain area, it becomes really interesting. And we look for double bear stamps and everything else. These are areas that where people aren't going.
No.
But what we like to do too, I should have sent you a photo or two, is so we'll measure that, we'll video it, we'll document it. And before we pour any plaster in there to cast it, fortunately nowadays, if you have an updated phone like an iPhone or Galaxy or whatever, they have apps where you can do a 3D, almost like a LiDAR, 3D scan of it. And so that's like the last thing we do before casting is we'll go in there and do the 3D scan of it. And what's been really cool over the years, last 2 years, I'll say, maybe 3 years since we've been utilizing this iPhone app, is that in many cases, the 3D scan shows way more detail than the cast. And every once in a while, the cast shows more detail than the 3D scan. But it's all about documentation. And, I mean, to send somebody a cast, it's heavy, it's bulky, you send it in the mail. Say I wanted to send it to Cliff Berkman or, your Jeff Meldrums. I can now just send in the 3D scan and opinion. And so we find many of those tracks. And over the years, we've been finding 14-inch tracks over and over again. Not all the time, but when we find tracks, it seems to be the same individual in this area. We find different size tracks in this area, but that 14-inch track we find periodically, and it seems to be the same individual moving in and out of this area.
And in that, I did notice toes, and what human being walks around.
I saw that too.
Yeah, I saw toes. I mean, my eyes getting trained, and I noticed toes. And you mentioned Berkman and Meldrum. Well, that's not the one. Here we go. Who we got in this picture?
Oh. Yeah, it's I think that was an event I did down in Squatch Fest. Yeah, that's Ken Gearhard. You guys are going to have him one of your events.
He used to be at our event, and I see Doc.
You got Michael Freeman standing next to Ken Gearhard there. Michael Freeman is the son of Paul Freeman. An amazing. You guys haven't been on your show yet?
No, I have not. Give me that information. Give us the information.
Yeah, Michael Freeman is he's an amazing individual. It's that following his dad's legacy by sharing his dad's stuff, and he was there for the ins and outs, the good, the bad, and all that. But oh man, I got so much respect for Michael. And then you got some of the organizers in the front of the event. You got Jeff Meldrum, Matt Pruitt, and Matt Pruitt, amazing guy as well. One of the best minds in this field, and Cliff Berkman there.
And one more quick one. You got Cliff, and you've got
Bart Catino, Todd Hill on the far right. Todd Hill, for those listening, he goes by SoCal Squatch. I think he's in the chat. And he always goes, "What's up, party people?" That's his thing.
I seen that earlier. SoCal. Okay, yeah.
He does that everywhere. He's a smart ass, and he's probably laughing right now. But he's a huge part of what we do. And been involved in a lot of Sasquatch stuff over the years in California and Mark Catino stuff.
Cool.
And Mark Russell, they're on his, with his hand on my shoulder. Mark Russell is a guy that rediscovered the Ape Canyon site. Eli Watson and them are working on a project with him for a future upcoming documentary that should be out sometime next year. And it's going to be one of the best.
Yeah. So many great documentaries coming out. We don't have time to talk about them on promote them. We got you on the show, but I like this because it shows your foot.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what? I don't like this one, and I'll tell you why. I was out hunting in a remote area, and I came across this. Not just one, there was multiple. I sent you one. It wasn't just like 1 foot and it disappeared. There was 2 decent tracks, and then it scuff marks into the woods. When I'm out hunting, I hunt. I try not to. I leave Sasquatch out of my brain because I'm hunting my quarry. And I came across this. Yeah, I came across this track, and it blew my mind. And I'm like, I can't cast it. At that time, I didn't have the 3D app because I would have done it. But it was just a really interesting track line. But you know, like as Clip Bergman always says, you know, your boot is not a good form of scale because, you know, a size 12 and one size shoe could be a different size 12 and another size shoe. That's all I had. And, you know, honestly, I was excited about it. It was fairly fresh, but I was hunting, so I just moved on.
Well, what I liked about, I get what you're saying there. I could agree with that. The thing that I liked is it was clearly a good 7 inches longer than your boot. So that at least it shows the length, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was big. And like I said, there was a track line, a few tracks, and then I could see, I followed it up a little ways and there were scuff marks so I could see where it went, but didn't leave a good impression. And it went into the Salau and smashed down. And, you know, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, well, maybe I won't see a deer today or a bear or whatever I was hunting that day. Or an elk, maybe I'll run to a Sasquatch. And I'm like, I got no way other than my cell phone to, you know, but I try to separate everything.
Well, I've got several more pictures and I still have some audio, but let's start on with another thing. How in the world, and I think what you sent me, I'm thinking might have been nesting spots, but I mean, that had to be something. Okay, we're talking, you're doing your research with the Olympic Project. You're doing a great job, boots on the ground. And then all of a sudden, one day you come across something that you think it might be a bedding area, possibly, right, for Sasquatch. How did this even come about? And I do know one thing. You were deep in the brush. You were well off trail. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
Correct. Yeah. Well, with the original nest find, which happened in 2015, it was actually found by a timber surveyor. So we were led to the area. We didn't discover these nests. It was a timber surveyor out there marking a possible tree line cut, next to our river, a seasonal salmon creek, out there marking it. And this guy had been in the business for 27 years working for this company. And you name it, he's ran into it. He's seen it all. And he came across these ground nests that blew his mind. I mean, he's seen bear beds, he's seen elk, bedding areas, deer, everything. And he's ran into mountain lion and all. I mean, just a man's man that's done it all. And he came across these ground nests and it blew his mind. So we got out there eventually. At that time, I think he discovered 3 or 4 of them. He got kind of weirded out and left the area and got a hold of my partner, Derek Randalls. And Derek Derek came out there originally with James Milling of the Olympic Project, a couple of DNR, Department of Natural Resources guys, and the owner of the property. And all of them, I mean, we're talking, they're all in their, for the most part, 40s, 50s, and 60s, had never seen anything like these. And we were very fortunate to get a key to the gate to access this area. And we've been doing that ever since. But we did, Todd Hill and I, in 2020, after many years, 2015, there was 7 nests found. We found another 23 nests in this area along these fingers, all made probably from the same time frame. In 2020, after years and years of looking for more nests, Todd Hill and I walked in on something making one that freaked us both out. I mean, it was a pretty harrowing experience. I think it's been shared on Small Town Monsters. We don't do a lot of production stuff because I don't like TV and I just don't like TV in general. I think most of these TV shows are disingenuous and it's just, it's entertainment. It's just entertainment.
I got you.
Yeah. And so I can go into that too, which is crazy, but Yeah, how many times we've been approached and how many shows I've turned down over the years and other members have turned down. But that aside, Todd Hale and I walked in on one being made and almost got a glimpse of what was making it. We did not. It retreated around us, very large individual, and eventually found this nest in the making with fresh huckleberry snaps, upwards of a couple feet off the ground to over 9 feet off the ground, no teeth marks, no claw marks, and found suspect hair in the area that matches primate hair. Found, again, 14-inch tracks and other size tracks, but the 14-inch tracks really is consistent in this area. We even brought Cliff Berkman out there after a tedious process to help us cast. There was so much to cast. Hand impressions. We got 2 hand impressions and a partial hand impression in there. That one of them turned out really good. The other 2 did not. I hope we find more in the future. Well, actually, Chris Spencer and I did find one last year, which we did a 3D scan on, and it turned out phenomenal.
Really briefly, too, not to cut you off at all, but I'm just getting into the nesting areas. A lot of these nesting areas, these nest beds, if you will, they were intricately put together, woven together. And in fact, it wasn't just a bunch of brush just haphazardly thrown about and spread about. It was like, looking at these, I saw it on the documentary, okay? They seem to be at least a foot, maybe 12, 13 inches thick and woven and all around, right? And it almost was like, and there was almost like a lip where it actually prevented the rain even a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not I think if a human being would build one, I think you even mentioned in the show, you tried building one from hand, right?
Yeah, twice now. I'll get into that, but just to describe the nests themselves, they're different sizes. They're different sizes. They're oval in shape, bathtub in shape, not circular.
Yeah.
They're bathtub in shape. There was only one that was circular, which was one of the smaller nests, over a foot in depth, 14, 15, 16 inches in depth. And you have this outline, like you said, fashioned, formulated, not haphazardly thrown together. Some of the branches, the larger branches were on the bottom. You had the smaller branches on top. Some of the branches you could track that they were taken from 30 feet away and brought over and made and formulated into a nest. And that's amazing. I don't know any other than humans that do that. This area doesn't have any trash. It's way off trail. Multiple size nests. Like I said, had a lip. They're great with the overhead canopy. You can't get a drone over there to look down. It protects you from the rain. But having all that insulation, a complete mattress of huckleberry, you stay off the ground and dry. And there's a lot of thought. Derek Randalls and I we recreated one years and years ago just to see what it would take. Derek Randalls and I, it took us over 40 minutes to build a nest, as thick as it was. And we had to then, after depleting the material around us, all the huckleberry, we had to venture out and collect more huckleberry and bring it over. And we watched this thing over over 6-7 months. We watched this thing deplete. We realized that we did a good job, but we did not collect enough huckleberry. There was even more to be added, watching the degradation. And then for visual purposes, I went to an event, Squatch Fest, down in Kelso, up in Ocean Shores, Washington. I did an event called Sasquatch Summit, where I recreated with Derek Randalls a gigantic, one of the larger nests, over 8 feet long. And we transported it, built this thing up, transported it, and brought it to the event. And because photos don't do it justice, video doesn't do justice, to see one of these nests in person, yes, we recreated it, how they were originally found. It blew people's minds. In fact, it's now that nest that I took up to the Sasquatch Summit is, actually, it wasn't Sasquatch Summit, excuse me. It was Kelso, Washington, the Squatch Fest event. That's where I took it. But anyways, Cliff Berkman's museum, is down in Boring, Oregon. And he asked me, hey, when you're done with this here, can you take it down to the museum? And it's now set up there in a glass case. And yes, it's degraded and it's browned up and darkened. But if anybody's in Oregon and wants to see one of the most amazing Sasquatch related museums, I mean, bar none, every time I go down there, I'm blown away. There's always something new. But that nest is sitting there in a case, and you can actually visually look at it and make up your own opinion. Would a bear do that? Would a human do that? And then realize that listening to the show that there wasn't just one, there was multiple nests in this area of varying sizes, but took a lot of time to build them. And 2 of the nests that were discovered in that 24 total now were built. 2 of them were built off the ground in the huckleberry, 3 feet off the ground. And we call them practice nests because that's what gorillas do to teach their young. They'll build a practice nest in a bush, and it would not hold any weight, but it was a mirror image of what was built on the ground, but in the bush themselves.
Wow.
I'm still amazed. This is why I moved to Washington. I'm still absolutely fascinated with this discovery that we were led to, and then we subsequently found more nests. And like I said, in 2020, Todd Hale and I walking in on a new nest being made blew my mind, and we have a lot to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. People are interested. It's just it's painting a picture. We don't think these nests are being made every year. I think to be found more often, but historically speaking, these nests have been found, and they're been found in remote areas, and they're almost always found by somebody in a timber company, a timber surveyor, getting way off trail where people don't hunt, hike, don't explore. They're found in remote areas, and they've been found in Northern California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Alaska. Some of the if you look at Robert Alley's book, Raincoat Sasquatch, a phenomenal book. There's a picture of a nest that was found again by a timber guy. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I mean, it's different material, but it's a nest. And one more tidbit I think that your audience might like to hear is that are familiar with the 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film that was filmed up there in Bluff Creek in October of 1967. There's a guy who worked for the timber company named Lyle Laverty. He was out doing his job in an area, it's Scorpion Creek. He was above Scorpion Creek, which feeds into Bluff Creek. So a stone's throw away from where Patty was filmed. He found a nest above Scorpion Creek, the same western-facing slope on a ridge line, a creek down below. He found a nest, and nobody hears about that. But if you look at Patty, that Patty was a female, obviously, for obvious reasons. We're of the opinion these nests are made periodically, not every year, maybe 4 to 5, 6 years, in remote areas for a birthing possible. Again, hypothesis, spitballing, but possibly for a birthing scenario when you have salmon running up these creeks, you have everything, all the nutrients you need, and you're giving birth. You build a nest, not for an overnighter, but maybe for a couple of nights a week, who knows? These nests were definitely not made for an overnight thing. Not like what a gorilla would do. They just build a little bed and they. These were made for multiple nights, if not a week. In 1967, there was a nest found above Scorpion Creek, which feeds into Bluff Creek, and a stone's throw away from the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Wow.
That's awesome. And God, you kind of stole a little bit of my thunder because, well, in a way you did. I mean, but I don't believe that these nests, and I believe these nests are created. I believe they're out there. I believe 100%. But when I'm thinking Sasquatch, I think they're socialized. They live in a clan. I think when they sleep within their tribe. Maybe some standing, maybe some on the ground. Maybe they burrow underground. I believe that there's a tunnel system, perhaps. But when I think of the nest, I don't think Sasquatch should take that time and effort to build a nest just to lay down for one day. Because I think they're always moving. And I'm thinking that you think that maybe the nesting area is a birthing area? Any evidence of that, or blood, or anything that?
Well, first of all, yeah, that's our running opinion and a hypothesis is that it's a birthing scenario, a nursery, so to speak. I definitely, that's our running opinion. Now, when it comes to blood and all that stuff, these were found in May by a timber surveyor.
Okay.
The original nest site. And so we weren't led out there. Well, we believe they're being made the end of February into March. That's our opinion.
Wow.
Based on the degradation, watching these things, discolor and be taken apart by nature. So when they were found, there was nothing. The salmon run had already ended. So people ask me all the time, well, the salmon are right down there, less than 100 yards away. Did you find any carcasses? Well, I mean, I've watched salmon run up these creeks for years, and raccoons, bear, drag them up there, and then their carcasses disappear really quick. So right. If they were found in May and they were made in, say, the nests were made in February or March, you're not going to find placentas or blood or any of that stuff up there.
Well, just an idea.
No, it's a great question. It really is. And then when Todd Hell and I in 2020 walked in on something making one, it was just starting to be formulated into a nest. It was the gigantic pile of huckleberry snaps. Again, it takes something with an opposable thumb to snap this stuff off without claw marks or teeth marks. And some of the impressions in 2020 were found underneath the huckleberry pile itself that was being formulated into the nest. I mean, underneath. If we had not removed that foliage from the ground, we never would have seen those impressions. That was something that Cliff Bergman had found, and it blew my mind. I'm standing there going, there's a 14-inch track. There's a 14-inch track underneath the pile, like it was snapping stuff off and just dropping it to its feet. So our goals for the future, that I'll tell you, Rob and Krista, is that we want to find more nests. This may be the year. If they're made every 5 years in the months of, say, tail end of February into March, it could be this year. We went from 2015 to 2020, finding in the first, 2015 to half a part of 2016, really finding more nests, but they're all made at the same time period. Walk in on something, making one, and we have it recorded, just never got to see the sucker because it retreated down the ravine. We have a good chance of doing that again. I prefer, honestly, this may sound kind of bad, but I felt guilty. I don't know if Todd does, but I felt guilty later on walking into that nesting area and disturbing something making a nest if it in fact was going to give birth or whatever it was going to do. I felt guilty. I actually felt like I disturbed it. It's not going to come back here. And now it may have to go make a nest somewhere else. That really kind of bothered me. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm not out to prove Sasquatch exists.
Sure.
I'm just trying to document what I know exists. That in fact, one day, if it is proven, all this data will be there. I don't know if I'm going to walk in on it. And I don't know if that's a good scenario to walk in on, a mother with a child. I don't know. It's like walking in on a bear and her, cub, a salmon cub. That's a bad scenario. And I've done it one time. It's not a good experience.
Yeah, because the mother's got to protect that young at all costs.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it was Barbara that had a good point here. Have you ever thought about using luminol maybe for blood?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's in our arsenal. It's something we've thought about doing. We haven't actually implemented that yet, but it's like one of those, and that's a great point and an awesome thing. I've talked to Doug Hycheck about this. Luminol is a great way to do it. If you come across something that you think there might be blood, everything other than the new nest area, everything we kind of discovered is going to be kind of older, and there was no reason to use luminol. I mean, we didn't think there'd be blood. The Pacific Northwest obviously is a very wet area, so the nest being discovered in May, the original ones in May of 2015, and then probably made in February or March. I don't think there'd be any blood to find, but in the future, that's a great thing to utilize and possibly capture some more data.
Yeah. Yep. I gotcha.
No.
Have you ever kind of go on a little bit different of a subject here? have you guys run into anything like dogmen or anything like that out there, or strictly Bigfoot?
I have to apologize once again. I'm getting better, everybody, but when I get the sneezing and coffee coming on, it's all coming up off my lungs, and I'm not gonna get rid of it on live TV, as they say. So I apologize.
You're good, Rob. You're good.
Good man, Rob. Good man. Back to your question, Krista. So I like I said, I spent many years, 1993 through 2008 in California, up and down everywhere in California, all of Oregon for many years, from 2008 to 2017 in Oregon. And now I'm up here in Washington. I've heard stories here and there, but no, it's all been Sasquatch related. Or I think I've only taken in one report in all those years of California, Oregon, and Washington. I did I still do. I mean, last day of school about it. But I did a show called Monster X Radio, and I've interviewed literally hundreds and thousands. People on foot or on my show. No, I've never come across anything dogman related.
Gotcha.
Personally,
Right.
and I've never experienced anything like that. The Sasquatch stuff is pretty few and far and few between. So, but yeah, sorry. That answer that.
But no, well, we always throw in the dogman because it seems like Bigfoot dogman kind of goes hand in hand. But you in the Pacific Northwest have not come across dogman to your knowledge.
No. I mean, no.
Okay. I got you. And you also got some great audio. Shane, we could do this show for 6 hours. I got a couple more pictures. Seems like we're getting warmed up, I know, but I got to bring in some of this audio. You claim it's not your best, and that's fine. But you've sent me so much stuff. I'm gonna play some audio clips for everybody, and you can perhaps, give us your take on it.
Yeah.
This first one is labeled. Well, this one is just, it says too long vocals.
Before you play, can I just state that I believe all these are looped. So you're going to hear the recording played over and over again. So it's not like just throwing that
I'll play it long enough so people know that. I'll play it over and over for a little bit so everyone can, if you have headphones, great. If not, well, listen back. Watch the replay if you're late anyways. So here we go. Hang on. So here's the one that says too long vocals. It's not playing. Why is it not playing?
You played it earlier and it worked.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, it's sitting right here. Oh no, why is it not playing? Maybe I gotta remove. Oh no.
I don't know why that's not working. You had it working earlier.
Yeah, I played it for. Oh, I know why. I have the background music. Yeah, so you have that listed again, too long vocals, just to record it.
Yeah.
So where was that? Was that in your area? And what do you suspect that was?
Well, so we don't have wolves up in the Olympics. So a lot of people would claim that we don't have wolves. What's fascinating about that recording was after Todd Hale and I walked in on this new nest being made in 2020, I started placing audio a couple of 100 yards away from the nest area, and we got a tremendous amount of audio in the span of a couple of weeks. Like I didn't send you a quarter of it. It was probably the one time frame that I've ever experienced myself, where there was just so much going on in a short period of time. I got audio where stuff is being ripped out of the ground, trees being, just gnarly stuff. But so what I expect that to be, it's
well, it's definitely fascinating. I love audio more than pictures, to be honest with you. And here's another one: unknown vocals.
Wow.
Yeah, if I'm camping and I hear that, I'm like, what in the heck is going on here?
That was up in the Olympics, recorded, I believe, off of one of our Tascam units. Fairly close. I believe that was in the month of August. August. Again, I love the month of August. It's a money month for me, personally, and that's just my belief. August is a great month. Why, I don't know. But that was recorded up in the Olympics. And you got to look at two scenarios there. That's either a human or a Sasquatch. Where we're at, no, it was a human, in my opinion.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
I don't know if that's a human.
It's not a human. I'll tell you that right now. But that's and this is visually being compared to known animals. Like, we don't just play audio and listen to it. We look at it visually through a spectrogram and try to rule out everything. And so these are just literally a handful of interesting recordings. Our library is rather huge at this point. And there's, it goes on and on.
Yeah, and I got another third one where you say, excuse me, suspected wood knocks. Here we go. So that suspected wood knocks, kind of hollow, but then after the wood knocks,
you hear
slowly hear.
Those are my favorite recordings, when you have a percussive followed by a vocal. And so David Ellis, I had sent him some audio, and he vetted it, looked at it, and he labeled it, I think, two wood knocks response, something like that. We just label them that way, but. No, what's fascinating is you have a couple of percussives in the beginning, knocks, and you see them on a spectrogram, and then you have the response, the vocals afterwards. That is profound audio, in my opinion. I love that stuff when you don't just have a vocal, but you have percussives and a vocal intertwined. It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I'm glad that I got a chance to play those tonight, because
that's my favorite. One of my favorites. Yeah.
Well, I like all three. That's probably my favorite as well, because you have the combination, excuse me, of the wood knocking. Let me ask you. A lot of people even speculate that wood knocks aren't even wood knocks. It's smattering or smacking of Bigfoot, their lips. There's gonna be some. Do you think a Bigfoot picks up a branch and smashes another tree and knocks? If they do, is that for communication, or do you think that maybe we're all looking down the wrong rabbit hole? Maybe it's their sounds that they're making from inside themselves. Hey, when I saw my Bigfoot, and when he yelled and roared at me, and it was deafening. Mm-hmm. So I'm imagining that maybe it's something that they're doing physically versus, picking up a log and banging against another tree stump.
Yeah, I love this question, because when I had my encounter in 2011, when I had those 5 percussives that I heard and reverberated underneath our tents, and it echoed off the falling valley, it you're looking back on it, months later, after having that rock come into our camp, I'm of the opinion, I have a couple opinions here. One, I think that Sasquatch was beating a rock on the tree and then decided to throw the rock into our camp, because in that area in Mount Hood, everything is wet and soggy. You're going to get one smack and it's going to splatter everywhere. These were 5 solid boom, 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 boom. And then we had a rock come into our camp. That tells me that most likely, Oxen Razor, if it was a Sasquatch, it was hitting that tree with that rock and it threw it into our camp. So I think a lot of these knocks, we call them wood knocks, and I'm sure they happen. I've heard a lot of people talk about them over the years, and I think a lot of times there's some that are wood on tree or whatnot. Some are rock, I think, which is more common, a rock hitting a tree. But David Ellis has, of the Olympic Project, has a ton of recordings, and he can do an amazing, I can't do it, mouth pop. He does this mouth pop with his mouth, and it sounds like a knock. So and you look at Native American lore in historical reports, they talk about stuff like this. I think, so some of it is mechanical. They're doing it on a tree. I tend to lean towards a lot of it's rock on the tree or a stump, but some of it is definitely, you hit your chest hard enough, all that stuff, and pops with your mouth. I think some of it is definitely just that. We just like a whistle. I mean, not how many times, but I've heard a few whistles over the years where bad stuff's happened. I call it bad, but that whistle doesn't match. And it's a weird hour. So a lot of it, I think, is from the individual, whether it's a hand clap, a cup, a mouth pop, whatever. I think a lot of it comes from the individual itself, and not it's internal and not external.
And I think right here this is a pretty big fella right here.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that's Chris Spencer again.
Wow.
That was such one of the best things that happened to us last year was finding this Trackway. And we documented. Talk about having people at your disposal that are expertise. We had an archaeologist on the site that helped us measure every angle, every elevation. Stuff that blew my mind. But that was one of the coolest finds of last year. And there was 9 tracks found. I think we casted 8. One was not really castable, but amazing. That is amazing. I love most about this, and I've seen very few like this. You look, Krista, as you notice too, how it starts from the back, the three tracks, all how it's described is how Sasquatch walk. Not like a human being side to side, 1 foot in front of the other. It's parallel, right? And you can see that the front toe on the left, and then the back, the toe on the right. Yeah, I mean, I could see that from just doing this for so long. And what was cool about that track find was that every track impression was different. It wasn't cookie cutter. It was exactly what you expect for something stepping on the ground and its foot formulating to its environment. Its substrate.
How big were those tracks?
Those particular ones, I believe, were 16s. 16 inches. Yeah, 16 and a half. In length. And I forget off the top of my head the striding length, but it was pretty profound. And there was even one, I didn't share the photo, but one where it had stepped on a branch, a root, and its foot kind of folded over. You can see the scuff marks, but you had toes here and a heel here, just like a hand would do if you grasped something. It was pretty dang cool. That is cool. And is this a track outside of a possible nesting area, or is that just the continuation? Yeah, that was Cliff Berkman. And like I said, I know it's a long story how this all transpired, but no, we brought Cliff out there. I'll say real quick. So 2020, when we discovered this new nest area,
we weren't going to touch it. We were going to bring in biologists and people outside of the Bigfoot world. And then COVID hit. The first case was in Washington, and nobody wanted to fly out. Nobody wanted to come and investigate this. So we decided, because of the bad weather moving to this area, the snow, we decided to go in there, collect everything. And Cliff's a good friend of mine and a really good caster. And so I said, hey, Cliff, get your ass out here. We need to cast some stuff, and we need to collect some material. And so he came out there, and where you're seeing is right now, that is exactly what I was talking about earlier, where that foot impression he's casting, that 14-inch track, was underneath. We had already moved the material. That was underneath all the material we had moved. Okay, and that was one of two. And it was a right foot. It wasn't a left foot. It was a right foot. So whatever was standing there collecting the huckleberry up above moved from right foot to right foot. And we would never have found that had we not lifted up. See a little bit of the huckleberry laying there. We had moved we had collected 5 to 6. We went to Home Depot and bought these big brown bags, for leaf collection, because that, you don't want to put it in plastic. It sticks to the hair sticks to plastic. So we bought these big bags, probably carried 6 to 7 of those bags out of there. But underneath, though, that debris was 2 tracks, and that's Cliff casting one of them.
That's awesome. And for everybody listening, well, if you're new, please subscribe to the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, Bigfoot Mystery Rob. I see Monica Rollins is in the house, our paranormal world.
Oh, Monica, I haven't talked to her in years.
Yeah, good old little
She's
Monica.
Awesome. Monica's awesome.
She is awesome.
We love our little Monica. She's on with me, Krista and Brandy, at midnight on Saturdays. But not only are you out in the woods, and I got to blow through these really quickly because I want you I'm going to show them all in an order. Then you can speak on these. Not only are you out in the forest, but you're a cave dweller, man. Here's a cave. You got your cables down there.
That's a mine.
That's a mine. Well, it's okay. A mine. My bad.
Oh, no,
and then really briefly, that's sweet. Look at that, man.
Yeah,
that is cool.
Wow.
And then we got you coming out of a rock.
That's actually real quick. That is Ape Canyon. That is the mine that was
Ape Canyon.
Oh wow!
Oh
so
no!
That's 19. You're the first person to share that. That's the mine from 1924, the Ape Canyon attack.
This is the mine here as well, then, right?
No, that is separate.
Okay.
Yeah, that mine is actually rather short. It's been kind of filled in over the years, but that right there is from Ape Canyon. Alex Petikoff, Small Town Monsters, Eli Watson. They're working on documentaries on this. I'm not really a part of it.
Yeah,
I've been going there for my second trip out there. Mark Marcel has invited me out, and I didn't want to be part of the video, but I went out there while they were filming, and I just wanted to see the mine because I was so close to finding it in 2015.
Wow.
But I just said, hey, if you guys are going out there, I want to be there to see the mine. And I was probably the 5th person to see it. So, no, I mean, the Ape Canyon story, everything stacks up.
Okay.
And that's, good memory.
And then here's the last cave one. This must be going into it.
Yep. It's there. The mine is there. They discovered it. And you just wait till Small Town Monsters comes out with this, Eli's episode, Small Town Monsters, and Alex's. I think I'm a little bit a part of Alex's episode. That's like a sister to the main one. But either way, don't care. It's going to be an amazing thing. I can't wait for them to show that.
And I have one last picture. What I love most at the end of a long, exhausting day in the field, or in the mines, or in the caves, in the forest, cutting through brush, listening to howls and moans in the night. When you kick back with the buddies, probably the best part of the whole day, right here. There you go, around the campfire.
Best time of the night, man.
Just chilling out, man. Listen to the sounds of Mother Nature roaring in the background with a beautiful campfire and chilling with the boys. Yeah. That is the tap off to just a great expedition, research venture, whatever you want to call it, camping outing. This has been a fantastic show.
Yeah, it has. I'd like to maybe get you on Blondes and Booze sometime in the future.
Yeah, of course.
Let me know. I'd love to join you, Krista. I'd love to join you. And it's been a great night, great discussion. And again, thanks for having me on.
Oh, I got your link in this video, but really briefly, where can people find you, man?
Facebook, Shane Corson, Instagram. I don't do the Twitter thing that much, X, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
I think the best way is just through olympicproject.com, the website. That's probably the best way to reach me or any other individual I've mentioned tonight. Like I said, I'm just kind of the focal speaker tonight. I work with so many great individuals. Man, like I said, I'm very blessed to work with them. They do so much, great work and just a pleasure to work with them. And so,
well, you all do. The Olympic Project is amazing.
So, it is amazing.
You all are great.
And I'm going to say this, and I don't say this very often. I don't really. One of the best shows we've had, and what I love most about you, Shane, is down to earth. You tell it like it is. You show what you've found. Mm-hmm. You don't try to entice anybody. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just doing what you love to do out in the wilderness, in the forest. And that's what I love most about you and having you on as an awesome guest tonight, man.
Wow. That's perfect. I really appreciate that. Like I said, it's an honor being here and being talking. I just love to talk Sasquatch, and I don't claim to know anything. I don't try to be so arrogant to say this is the way it is and this is the way it is.
No, right.
I'm open because I don't claim to know anything. I have some ideas. I think we've discovered some stuff, and I'll focus on those arenas. But I have an open ear, and I'm no expert, and I'm cool with that.
I love that. Yeah, none of us are experts. I don't care if you've been in the field 50 years, you're not an expert because you don't have the answers, at least partial answers. And are those answers even correct? We don't know.
We don't know.
We just don't know. Shane, I'm going to have to cut you loose. Thank you. I'm going to get back with you tomorrow. And
and I'll be in touch too.
Yeah,
all right, absolutely. Krista, thank you so much. And Rob, thank you.
Yeah, me and Krista still have some unfinished business to take care of with the popularity of our conference growing. We got to talk a little about that, but I'll let you go to bed. Well, actually, dude, for you, it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So you can go sit down and watch another documentary or do whatever you do at 8 o'clock at night out in the Pacific Northwest. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
That was a great show. Shane Corson, the Olympic Project. Loved it, Krista. We're not going to sit here and break down the show. It's ready to go late for both of us. But what we need to do as we're in the conference, mode, and we've touched a little bit. Now we have 90 people in the chat room. It's a perfect time to bring up what we got going on.
Yeah, we got the Crossing Realms Conference, don't we?
The Crossing Realms Conference, UFOs, Paranormal, Cryptid, September 19th and 20th. Yep. Richmond, Missouri. Yep. And also our guests featuring, well, first of all, I'll be there. Krista will be there. Brandy, Monica, Donnie, Jason, Paranormal Paul. We'll all be there.
We will all be there.
Our speakers, Josh Hurd, Heather Mosier, Small Town Monsters, Frankie and Dan from Haunted Garage, Texas, of course, the Master of Ceremonies.
Yeah.
William Lunsford from Arkansas, he's a researcher. Ronald Murphy and Celine. Greg Ogles, who's in the chat room. Dr. Dean Bertram, fascinating man. He's doing something on UFOs. Special guest, Brent Thomas, Paranormal Portal, Ken Gerhard, y'all know Ken, and Dana Stricker, a medium and lecturer. So we're also doing you can get more of that one. We're also doing a ghost hunt of all things. We're doing everything on this. And it's cheap, very cheap, according to Monica Rollins, to get in.
It is. It's very affordable for everybody. So if you want to go Friday night and Saturday during the conference, the meet and greet, and you want VIP, it's only $60. If you don't want VIP on the Saturday conference, it's $50. If you just want to come Saturday for the conference, and that's only $35. It's cheap. It's really cheap.
It's
so
very inexpensive. It's family friendly.
yep.
Kids under 12, of course, free. 12 and under are free. Is that correct as well?
12 and under are free. Yep. And it's being sponsored by Monster Quest producer Doug Hijack.
Doug Hijack's a sponsor.
And so is Para with the Normal, Mary Lynn.
Para with the Normal's a sponsor. So we've got a lot of people well known and not so well known, but it is what it is. It's a nice mesh and blend of people going. And if anybody chooses to get down there earlier, I think I'm gonna get down there Thursday morning, I think, and just hang out with you guys and just kind of unwind before Friday. And who knows? Well, you'll be there Wednesday. I might be there. Well, I'm thinking maybe Thursday. For Thursday for sure. I gotta see what the schedule is like and so on and so forth, because I'm gonna make an event out of this. I'm not doing 2 days and going home. That's just exhausting and it's not worth your time or energy.
Right. Yeah. No, it's
I want to hang out. I want to hang out with our people. Hang out with our people.
Yeah, we always have a good time, don't we?
We always do, no matter where we go, anytime, any day. Always a great time.
Yeah.
With that being said, it's been a great show. Fantastic guest. Thanks everybody for coming on in. Oh, really quickly, I got to thank our. Oh, I know. Geez, I'm sorry, Chris. I noticed you had a bunch of questions started. We already were over 2 hours.
And I have questions wrote down too, so I will.
Well, I figured 2 hours was kind of enough.
Yeah.
T-Bone, JoJo, Maggie, and Gary, thanks and Maggie again. Thank you for the super chats and memberships. And you guys, it's my fault, not Krista's. Your question did not get asked because of me. I neglected to see she starred them. Little Krista starred questions. Blame it on me, and I am sorry for that.
Yep.
But I can blame it on being under the weather. I'm getting better, though, everybody. I'm getting better.
You are.
Getting better.
You are.
With that said, Krista, and everybody in the chat, everybody listening later, the replay, subscribe, hit that like button on the way out. Thank you so much. For Krista, I'm BMR. Until next time.
See ya. Good night.